The Patek Philippe tan line on his wrist didn't belong in the alley behind Rosie's diner. Maya Richardson's hands were still shaking from the dinner rush. Third double shift this week, and all she wanted was to get home to Emma before midnight. But there he was, slumped against the grease-stained brick wall, dress shirt torn and dark with blood, shivering so violently she could hear his teeth chattering from 15 feet away. She should have kept walking. She had exactly $47.23 until Friday. Emma's inhaler prescription was waiting at the pharmacy. The rent was already late. But when his eyes found hers, desperate, apologetic, human, she thought about the promise she'd made 3 years ago, standing over fresh-turned earth and her mother's casket. Never walk past someone who needs help. In 30 minutes, Maya would make a choice that would cost her everything she had left. She would sell her wedding ring, the last valuable thing she owned, to save a stranger's life. What she didn't know was that the man bleeding in that frozen Chicago alley owned the very building that cast shadows over her life every single day. Before we dive in, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to see where you're watching from. Also, if you appreciate stories like this, help me prove something wrong. My grandmother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. But I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these stories matter by hitting that subscribe button. Subscribe to Letters of the Heart, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. The February wind off Lake Michigan cut like glass. Maya's feet had gone numb somewhere around hour 12 of her shift, and the smell of burnt coffee and fryer grease had worked itself so deep into her hair, she couldn't remember what clean felt like anymore. Her fingers fumbled with the diner's back door keys, the arthritis starting early, Tony always said, from too many years carrying trays and not enough years sleeping. She almost missed him in the darkness. He was wedged between a dumpster and the building's back wall, and if it weren't for the soft, controlled breathing, the kind of breathing that comes from someone who's learned pain doesn't respond to panic, she would have thought he was just another piece of Chicago's forgotten landscape. Hey. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. You can't sleep here. Owner calls the cops on... Then she saw the blood. It ran from a gash above his left eyebrow, dark and wet, tracking down his face and soaking into what looked like a several $100 dress shirt. His jacket was gone. No coat in February. His hands, pressed against the brick wall behind him, were scraped raw and beginning to purple with cold. But it was his shoes that made her stop. Italian leather. The kind that cost more than her monthly rent. Spotless except for the scuff marks from whatever had happened to him. A swan that had wandered into a junkyard and gotten itself hurt. I'm sorry. His voice was careful, educated, the kind of voice that said please and thank you and excuse me out of genuine respect, not survival. I know I'm trespassing. I just needed to stop moving for a minute. Maya knelt beside him, ignoring every instinct screaming at her to walk away. She had $47. She had Emma waiting at Mrs. Chen's apartment upstairs. She had her own problems, more than she could count, more than she could carry. She knelt anyway. What happened to you? I was mugged. He tried to smile, winced. Quite thoroughly, actually. Phone, wallet, watch. Even my coat, which seems particularly cruel given the weather. His left eye was swelling shut. Up close, she could see his hands trembling, not just from cold, but from shock settling in. This man needed a hospital, needed it now. I'll call 911. She reached for her phone. No, wait. His hand shot out, caught her wrist. The grip was weak but desperate. They'll want ID, insurance cards. I don't have anything. They took everything. The hospital has to treat you. It's the law. They'll treat me enough to stabilize me, then demand payment I can't provide. He met her eyes, and she saw something there she recognized. The unique terror of knowing help exists, but being unable to access it. I don't even know any phone numbers. They're all saved in my phone. I can't call anyone. Can't prove who I am. Can't get home. The wind howled through the alley, and Maya watched this stranger, this expensive, educated swan, realize he'd become invisible, just like her. Please, he said quietly. I just need a few minutes to think, then I'll go. I promise. Maya looked at his face, at the blood still flowing, at the way his pupils weren't quite tracking right. She thought about Emma, about $47, about her mother's voice. We help because we can, not because we expect something back. Her hand closed around something in her coat pocket. The wedding ring. Simple gold band, small diamond that Derek had insisted was enough for a waitress. The only thing she had left that was worth anything. Come on. She stood, offering her hand. We're going to the ER. I told you, I can't. I know. Come on anyway. The ER receptionist looked at Maya like she was invisible. Insurance card? The woman didn't even glance up from her computer. He was mugged. They took everything. Name and date of birth, then. We can look him up in the system. The man beside Maya, she still didn't know his name, spoke up. James Whitmore. April 15th, 1988. The receptionist typed, frowned, typed more. Nothing's coming up. Do you have another name you go by? Ever registered at Northwestern Memorial? Rush? I don't think so. I have a personal physician who... He stopped. The kind of stop that comes from realizing you're about to say something that reveals too much. I can't remember his number. Then we'll need payment up front. Credit card, cash, or someone to sign as guarantor. Maya felt the ring in her pocket, heavy as a stone. How much? ER visit with sutures, concussion protocol, x-rays to rule out fractures, minimum $800. Could be more depending on what we find. $47.23. The man, James, touched her arm gently. It's okay. I'll figure something else out. Like what? Bleeding in an alley until someone less broke finds you? I'll be fine. Thank you for trying. But he wouldn't be fine. She could see it in the way he swayed on his feet. The glaze in his eyes that meant the concussion was worse than it looked. If she walked away now, she'd read about him in tomorrow's paper. Another body in an alley. Another person nobody helped. The receptionist was already looking past them, to the family behind them in line. Maya made a decision that would change everything. I'll be right back. She squeezed James's arm. Sit down. Don't move. I'll be right back. The walk to the 24-hour pawn shop took 4 minutes that felt like 4 hours. Maya knew the way by heart. She'd been here before, 3 times in the past 2 years. The first time to sell her mother's necklace when Emma needed emergency dental work. The second time to sell her laptop when the electricity was about to be cut off. The third time to sell her winter coat when the eviction notice came. Each time, she'd walked out lighter. Each time she'd told herself it was the last time. The bell over the door chimed as she entered. The shop owner, Mike, who never bothered with last names, looked up from his phone. Back again, Maya? She pulled the ring from her pocket. Under the fluorescent lights, the small diamond caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the scratched glass counter. Mike picked it up, examining it with the jeweler's loop he kept on a chain around his neck. Gold's real. Diamond's small but decent quality. I can give you $1,200. It was worth at least $2,000. They both knew it. Okay. Her voice came out as a whisper. You sure? Last time you were in here, you said you'd never sell this one. Said it was... I'm sure. Mike counted out the bills slowly. $1,200 bills. Each one feeling like a piece of herself she'd never get back. She held the ring one last time, felt the weight of it, the years of promises it represented. Derek's voice in her head. You'll never make it without me. Her own voice, defiant in the night they signed the divorce papers. Watch me. Mom would understand, she whispered to no one. Then she set it on the counter and walked away. The hospital took $800. The cab to a hotel took $80. Maya kept $20 for her bus fare home. James, stitched and medicated and finally looking less like death, tried to take her hand in the cab. How can I repay you? What's your name? How do I find you? You don't need to repay me. Maya opened the cab door at the hotel entrance. Pay it forward someday. That's enough. But how did you pay for? Don't worry about it. Get some sleep. Make sure you follow up with a doctor in a few days. Wait, please, your name. She almost told him. Almost. But something stopped her. Maybe pride, maybe fear that accepting gratitude would make the sacrifice real. Would make her have to sit with what she just lost. Take care of yourself, she said, and closed the cab door. As the taxi pulled away, Maya looked down at her bare left hand. The space where the ring had been felt enormous, like a piece of her had been carved out and thrown away. She'd saved a stranger's life tonight. It had cost her everything she had left. And as she walked to the bus stop in the frozen Chicago night, she never imagined she'd see him again. She had no idea that in 3 weeks he would find her. And when he did, everything she'd worked so hard to build would start to crumble. 3 weeks passed, and James Whitmore couldn't stop thinking about the woman who disappeared into the Chicago night. His injuries had healed. The stitches above his eyebrow reduced to a thin pink line. The concussion symptoms faded. His ribs no longer aching with every breath. But something else hadn't healed. A debt. A question. A gnawing need to find the person who'd saved his life, and then vanished like smoke. From his penthouse office 60 stories above Michigan Avenue, James stared at the city below. Somewhere down there, in the maze of streets and lives and stories, was a woman whose name he didn't know and whose face he could barely remember through the haze of pain and shock. But he remembered her voice. Steady, kind, the way she'd said, "Come on anyway," when he'd told her all the reasons she shouldn't help. His assistant, Caroline, knocked twice before entering. The investigator is here. The private investigator, a former Chicago PD detective named Marcus Webb, had spent 3 weeks following a trail that should have been impossible to trace. No name, no address. Just a location, the alley behind a diner in the financial district. Found her. Marcus dropped a folder on James's desk. Maya Richardson, 32 years old. Single mother to a 7-year-old daughter named Emma. Works double shifts at Rosie's Diner, same place where you were found. Lives in a studio apartment 3 blocks away. No social media presence, No digital footprint to speak of. Pays everything in cash or with a debit card that's frequently declined. James opened the folder. The photo was grainy, clearly taken from a distance. Maya walking out of the diner in her uniform. Hair pulled back, exhaustion written in every line of her body. She's barely surviving. Marcus continued. Behind on rent. Daughter has medical issues, asthma. The diner's being sold to developers. She's about to lose her job. James felt something twist in his chest. While he'd been recovering in his penthouse, attended by his personal physician and personal chef, she'd been working herself into the ground. The woman who'd sold something precious to save him. He knew she'd sacrificed something. He'd seen it in her eyes. Was drowning. I need to see her. James stood, already reaching for his coat. Mr. Whitmore. Marcus's tone stopped him. People like her. They don't always want to be found. Especially not by people like you. She saved my life. And now you want to repay her. I get it. But a check isn't always the answer. James pulled out his checkbook anyway, writing out $50,000. It seemed like a reasonable amount. Enough to solve her problems without being insulting. Enough to clear his conscience and let him move on. He had no idea he was about to learn that some people can't be bought. Maya's world was crumbling in slow motion. The sold sign had gone up on Rosie's diner 3 days ago. 60 days until closure. Tony had announced at the morning meeting, his voice rough with 30 years of smoke and disappointment. 60 days until 15 people lost their jobs in a market that didn't care about waitresses pushing 35. Then came the rent increase notice, slipped under her door like a death sentence. $400 more per month, starting in 30 days. The landlord knew what he was doing, knew the diner was closing, knew she had nowhere to go, knew desperation when he smelled it. And Emma. God, Emma. Another asthma attack at school yesterday, the 3rd one this month. The school nurse's voice on the phone, careful and concerned. Mrs. Richardson, I really think Emma needs to see a specialist. This is getting worse. Maya knew. Of course she knew. She also knew a specialist cost $2,500 just to walk in the door. And Emma's current medication, the cheap stuff her insurance barely covered, wasn't working anymore. She was holding it together with duct tape and willpower. But duct tape doesn't last forever. The lunch rush was in full swing when he walked in. Maya was juggling 4 tables. The construction crew in booth 3, the businesswoman who always ordered egg whites and black coffee, the regulars at the counter who'd been coming since before Maya was born. She was in survival mode, moving on autopilot, when the diner's energy shifted. Conversations dropped, heads turned. A man in a suit that cost more than her monthly rent stood in the doorway, looking completely, utterly out of place. Unless the GPS had a cruel sense of humor, this man did not belong at Rosie's diner. Maya glanced up, registered "Wrong place, buddy," and turned back to her tables. Then he moved into the light, and recognition hit like ice water. The blood was gone. The torn shirt replaced by Italian tailoring. The desperation in his eyes traded for confidence. But it was him. The stranger from the alley. The man she'd saved and sent away, and tried desperately to forget. He was looking right at her. Maya? His voice carried across the diner, and every single person stopped eating. I've been looking for you. I wanted to thank you properly. Heat flooded her face. The construction crew was staring. The businesswoman had paused mid-bite. Even Tony had stuck his head out from the kitchen, frowning. "You need to leave." Maya's voice came out harder than she intended. "Please, just 5 minutes. I owe you everything." "You don't owe me anything. That's the point." But James was already moving toward her, and the diner had gone from background noise to dead silence. Everyone was watching. Everyone was listening. And in a place like Rosie's, where Maya had worked for 6 years and built her reputation on being reliable and invisible, this attention was poison. Tony shot her a look that said this conversation was happening on her break, not his dime. Maya untied her apron with shaking hands. Outside. Now. The February air bit through Maya's thin uniform, but it was better than the stares, the whispers, the sudden and unwelcome spotlight. James followed her into the parking lot, and the moment they were out of earshot, he reached into his jacket. "I wanted to give you this." He held out a check. Maya didn't take it, didn't even look at it. "I don't want your money." "It's $50,000, enough to—" "I don't want your money," she repeated, each word sharp as broken glass. James's confusion was almost comical. "I'm trying to help. You saved my life, and I want to repay." "Stop." Maya held up her hand. "Just stop. I didn't help you for money. I helped you because you needed help. If I take that check, it wasn't kindness anymore. It was a transaction." "I don't understand. You're struggling. I can see it. Why won't you just—" "Because I don't need you to save me." The words burst out, raw and desperate. "I didn't save you so you could swoop in and fix my life. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. And the right thing for you to do now is to let me go back to work before I lose my job." James's frustration was starting to show. "I'm trying to do the right thing here. The right thing is to leave me alone. I could talk to your boss." "No." Maya's fury was cold now, controlled. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to swoop in and fix my life because it makes you feel better about yours. I don't know who you are, but I know people like you. Everything's easy when you can just throw money at problems." She turned to walk away, but James caught her arm gently. "At least take my card, please. If you ever need anything, I don't need anything from you." Maya pulled her arm free, didn't look at the business card he was holding out. James's voice dropped, quiet and almost hurt. "Everyone needs something." Maya met his eyes then, and something in her gaze made him step back. "Not from people like you." She walked back inside without taking the card. Didn't look back. Didn't let herself think about the $50,000 that could have solved every problem she had. Didn't let herself wonder why her hands were shaking, or why her chest felt tight, or why she wanted to scream and cry and collapse all at once. James stood in the parking lot, holding a check she'd never cash and a business card she'd never call. The cold bit through his expensive suit, but he barely felt it. All he could feel was the look in her eyes. Not hatred, not disgust, fear. She was afraid of needing help, afraid of being seen, afraid that accepting kindness meant admitting she couldn't do it alone. And as he stood there, watching through the diner window, as she tied her apron back on and returned to her tables with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, James realized something that made his chest ache. He had no idea how to help someone who didn't want to be saved. But what he didn't know was that Maya's world was about to collapse. And when it did, he would be the only person who could help her. whether she wanted him to or not. 1 week after James appeared at the diner, Maya's carefully constructed life began to unravel. It started with Tony calling an early morning meeting before the breakfast shift. 15 employees crammed into the storage room, coffee cooling in their hands, dread settling in their stomachs. The sale was official. 60 days until Rosie's diner closed forever. 60 days until they were all out of work. Maya stood in the back, doing the math in her head. Unemployment would barely cover half her rent. Finding another serving job in a city where diners were closing and being replaced by artisanal coffee shops and juice bars. In 60 days, impossible. Then came the envelope under her door. Notice of rent increase. $400 more per month, effective in 30 days. She read it 3 times, hoping the numbers would change. They didn't. Her current rent was already impossible. With the increase and no job, she was looking at eviction, at homelessness, at losing Emma. The panic started as a flutter in her chest and grew into something with teeth and claws. She picked up extra shifts at the catering company where she worked weekends. 16-hour days became her new normal. 4 hours of sleep became luxury. Emma stayed with Mrs. Chen most evenings, and the guilt of that, of her daughter eating dinner with a neighbor instead of her mother, sat in Maya's throat like a stone. Her feet had stopped hurting 3 days ago. Not because they felt better, but because she'd gone numb to it. Her body had simply decided that pain was the default state, and there was no point in reporting it anymore. She moved through the diner like someone running on fumes in prayer. Then Emma's school called. Maya was in the middle of a double shift, balancing 4 plates and a coffee pot, when her phone buzzed in her pocket. She almost didn't answer. The lunch rush was brutal, and Tony had made it clear that phones stayed in lockers. But something, instinct, mother's intuition, the universe whispering, "Pay attention," made her glance at the screen. Emma's school. Her blood went cold. "I have to take this." She shoved the plates at another server and ran for the back door, phone already at her ear. "Mrs. Richardson? This is Nurse Palmer at Emma's school. Emma's having a severe asthma attack. We've called an ambulance. They're taking her to Northwestern Memorial." The rest of the conversation dissolved into white noise. Severe. Ambulance. Northwestern Memorial. Maya didn't ask permission, didn't clock out, didn't grab her coat. She ran. 3 blocks to the hospital. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. She ran anyway. The ER was chaos. Crying children, worried parents, the antiseptic smell that meant crisis and fear. Maya pushed through to the desk, gasping. "Emma Richardson, 7 years old. Ambulance just brought her." Room 7, through those doors. Maya found her daughter connected to machines. A ventilator breathed for Emma in mechanical rhythm. Tubes ran from her small arms. Monitors beeped and flashed numbers Maya didn't understand. Emma's eyes were closed, her chest rising and falling with artificial precision. "Mom." The word came out muffled behind the oxygen mask. Maya was at her side in an instant, taking Emma's hand, brushing hair from her forehead. "I'm here, baby. Mama's here. Are you scared?" Maya forced a smile. The kind of smile that mothers learn to wear like armor. "Never, baby. Mama's got this." But she didn't have this. The doctor appeared, young, competent, concerned. "Mrs. Richardson, I'm Dr. Patel. Emma's condition is serious. This is her 3rd major attack in a month. She needs immediate specialist care and stronger medication. What she's on now isn't working. Okay, yes, whatever she needs. The specialist I'm recommending requires a referral fee of $2,500 for the initial consultation. The medication he'll likely prescribe runs about $400 monthly, and her current insurance won't cover it. $2,500. $400 per month. Maya had $43 in her checking account. There are payment plans, Dr. Patel continued gently, and financial assistance programs. Let me send someone from our billing department to discuss options. Options. The word felt like a joke. The financial counselor appeared 20 minutes later with a clipboard and sympathetic eyes. We have payment plans, but you'll need to provide proof of income, 3 months of bank statements, and a co-signer if your credit score is below. Maya stopped listening. No savings, no credit, no co-signer, no options. She sat in the chair beside Emma's bed, watching her daughter breathe through a machine, and felt something inside her crack. Emma's small hand found Maya's, squeezed weakly. Mom, are you scared? Maya forced that smile again. Never, baby. Mama's got this. But as she sat there in the fluorescent hospital light, listening to the ventilator's mechanical breath, Maya felt something inside her crack. She didn't have this. She didn't have anything. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost deleted it, almost threw the phone across the room, almost screamed. But she looked. I heard about Emma. I'm here if you need help. Her hand started shaking. Maya stared at that text for 17 minutes, the same amount of time it took for her world to completely change direction. How did he know? How did James know about Emma, about the hospital, about any of this? Then she remembered. Small community. Hospital staff talked. Someone must have mentioned the single mother in room 7, the waitress from Rosie's diner whose daughter couldn't breathe. Word traveled fast in their world. Her first instinct was anger. He'd been checking on her, keeping tabs on her life like she was some charity project. But then Emma coughed. A wet, struggling sound. And the ventilator compensated, and Maya's anger dissolved into something more desperate. The calculation was simple and terrible. Pride versus her daughter's life. She could refuse, could delete the text, block the number, go back to figuring it out on her own. She could maintain her independence, prove she didn't need anyone, especially not some stranger who thought money solved everything. Emma coughed again. Accepting help means admitting failure, the voice in Maya's head whispered. The voice that sounded like Derek, like disappointment, like every time she'd been told she wasn't enough. It means admitting Derek was right, admitting you can't do it alone. But her mother's voice came too, softer but stronger. Pride doesn't keep Emma breathing. Maya looked at her daughter, 7 years old, small for her age. Struggling for every breath, innocent, helpless, hers. Her fingers moved across the screen before her brain could stop them. 3 words that would alter everything. I need help. James arrived at the hospital in 30 minutes. Maya was still in the chair beside Emma's bed when the nurse told her she had a visitor. She expected the suit, the corporate armor, the walking reminder of everything she wasn't. Instead, James appeared in jeans and a sweater, looking almost human. His hair was slightly messy, no tie, no business face, just a person. Hi, he said quietly from the doorway. Maya stood, suddenly aware of her uniform stained with coffee and ketchup, her hair falling out of its ponytail, the exhaustion she wore like a second skin. "Can we talk in the waiting room?" "I don't want to disturb Emma." They sat in plastic chairs under fluorescent lights, surrounded by other people's crises. James didn't speak first, didn't launch into some prepared speech. He just waited. "I can't pay for her treatment." Maya's voice cracked. "I don't have insurance that covers specialists. I don't have savings. I don't have anything." "Okay. That's it? Just okay?" James leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'll pay for Emma's medical bills. All of them. The specialist, the medication, whatever she needs." "I can't pay you back." "I'm not asking you to." "Then what do you want?" James was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was careful. "I want to help because you helped me. No strings, no expectations. Just let me do this." Maya felt tears coming and hated herself for it. She never cried. Never broke, never let anyone see her weak. But the tears came anyway. "Why do you care?" The words came out broken. "You don't even know us." James handed her a tissue from the box on the side table. "You saved my life without knowing me. Why is it so hard to let someone do the same for you?" "Because when you needed help, it didn't cost you everything you had left." The truth of it hung between them. His need had been temporary. A crisis solved by a stranger's kindness and a pawnshop transaction. Her need was permanent, grinding, the kind that wore you down to nothing year after year. James was quiet for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "You're right. I'll never understand what you're going through. But I know what it feels like to be alone. And you don't have to be." Something in Maya's chest loosened. Not much. Just enough to breathe. "Tell me about Emma," James said. So she did. She told him about Emma's birth, premature and terrifying, about Derek leaving when Emma was 5, saying he couldn't handle a sick kid and a failing marriage, about her mother's death 3 years ago, cancer that ate through their savings and left Maya with nothing but grief and a 7-year-old daughter to raise alone. She told him about working doubles and triples, about the pawn shop visits, about the choice between groceries and utilities, about Emma's drawings that she hung on the refrigerator, about parent-teacher conferences where she was the only parent who showed up in a waitress uniform, about bedtime stories and goodnight kisses and the crushing fear that she wasn't enough. James listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer solutions, just listened. "I don't need you to save me," Maya said finally. "I just need Emma to be okay." "Then let's make sure she's okay." "Why?" The question came out desperate. "Why do you care this much?" James looked at her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. "Because 3 weeks ago, I was bleeding in an alley, and you knelt beside me. You didn't see a stranger. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped anyway, even though it cost you everything." He paused. "I want to see the world the way you do. And I can't do that if I walk away now." Maya wiped her eyes, aware she was crying, aware she looked like a mess, aware this man had just seen her completely broken. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. Help us. Please." James exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 3 weeks. "Okay." 2 weeks later, Emma was recovering. The specialist was working. The medication was helping. And Maya was avoiding James's calls because she'd discovered something that changed everything. 2 weeks after James paid for Emma's treatment, Maya's world shifted again. Emma was recovering. The new medication worked. The specialist, a kind woman named Dr. Morrison, who didn't make Maya feel like charity, had created a treatment plan that actually controlled the attacks. For the first time in months, Emma was sleeping through the night, playing, laughing. Maya should have felt relief, should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt trapped. James had called 6 times, texted 12, each message careful, respectful, asking if Emma was okay, if Maya needed anything, if they could talk. Maya had ignored all of them. She told herself it was because she was busy, because she didn't have time, because accepting help once didn't mean she owed him access to her life. But the truth was simpler and more painful. She didn't know how to exist in the same world as someone who could solve her biggest crisis with a signature on a check. The television was on in her apartment, background noise while Maya helped Emma with homework. Some news program she wasn't paying attention to. Then the anchor's voice cut through. Richardson Enterprises announced today a $50 million charity initiative focused on healthcare access for low-income families. Maya glanced up. James's face filled the screen. Not the James from the hospital. Tired, human, wearing jeans. This James wore a suit that cost more than her annual rent. Stood in front of a backdrop that said Richardson Enterprises in letters bigger than her apartment. Spoke with the confidence of someone who moved markets and changed lives with phone calls. CEO James Whitmore Richardson III outlined the program's goals. Richardson. Maya's brain stuttered. Richardson, as in Richardson Tower. The building she walked past every single day. The building that cast shadows over the diner where she worked. The building that represented everything she wasn't. Money, power, the ability to exist without fear. She grabbed her phone, searched James Whitmore Richardson. The results came flooding in. Billionaire CEO, age 38. Net worth estimated at $4.2 billion. Inherited Richardson Enterprises at 30. One of Chicago's most powerful men. Bachelor, philanthropist. Every conversation they'd had replayed in her mind. Recontextualized. I could talk to your boss. He hadn't been making an empty offer. He could buy the diner, could buy the whole building, could buy her entire neighborhood without noticing the expense. Let me help. He'd been slumming, playing poverty tourist, seeing how the other half lived. The humiliation burned through her like acid. Mom? Emma looked up from her homework. Isn't that the man who helped us? Maya turned off the TV, hands shaking. No, baby. That's someone else entirely. She blocked his number that night. When he showed up at the diner 2 days later, she refused to see him, made Tony tell him she was busy, made herself invisible again. He sent a check, $15,000, written in his crisp handwriting. She returned it unopened. Then she made the walk to Richardson Tower. Stood in the lobby that smelled like money and power and everything she'd never be. Approached the marble desk where a security guard looked at her uniform like she was something tracked in on someone's shoe. I need to leave something for James Richardson. The guard's expression said she didn't belong here, would never belong here, should turn around and go back to serving coffee to people who mattered. But Maya held out the envelope anyway. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 3 words. Thank you. Goodbye. She thought refusing his money would end it. She thought she could go back to her life and pretend he'd never existed. Pretend she hadn't let herself hope, for just a moment, that someone saw her as more than a charity case. But what she didn't know was that helping James that night had put her in the crosshairs of something far more dangerous than heartbreak. Derek walked into Rosie's diner on a Tuesday afternoon, and Maya's blood turned to ice. She hadn't seen her ex-husband in 18 months. Not since he'd signed the divorce papers and disappeared into whatever life he decided was more important than his daughter. He'd left when Emma was 5, when the medical bills started piling up and the weight of being a father to a sick child became too much for him. Now he stood in the entrance, wearing clothes that were too nice for Derek, too new, too expensive. And behind him stood a man in a suit, holding a briefcase. A lawyer. Maya's hands tightened around the coffee pot she was holding. Derek approached her table, and his smile was the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Maya, you're looking well. What do you want, Derek?" The lawyer stepped forward, opened his briefcase with mechanical precision, and placed a document on the table. Petition for full custody. The words blurred. Maya's vision tunneled. "What is this?" Derek had the decency to look uncomfortable, almost. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, about my mistakes, about Emma. I want to be a part of her life again. You left us. I made mistakes. I'm making amends now." His voice had that practiced quality, like he'd rehearsed this. "But I'm concerned about Emma's well-being. Your unstable financial situation, the impending unemployment, the housing insecurity. You don't get to do this." Maya's voice shook. "You abandoned us. You don't get to swoop in now and—" The lawyer's voice cut through, cold and professional. "Mr. Chen is prepared to provide Emma with stability, a 2-bedroom apartment, consistent health care, a stable home environment. I provide those things. Do you?" The lawyer slid another folder across the table. "These are hospital records showing Emma's repeated emergency visits, eviction notices, documentation of your inability to maintain consistent employment." Maya opened the folder with shaking hands. Photos. James at the hospital, James at the diner, James and Maya in the parking lot. Each photo professionally taken, time-stamped, annotated with clinical precision. "Where did you—" Derek's fake concern was back. "Dating billionaires while our daughter suffers? Really, Maya? I'm not dating anyone. The evidence suggests otherwise. The photos were too good, too professional, too coordinated. This wasn't Derek's amateur attempt at custody. This was something else. Something calculated. This wasn't your idea," Maya said slowly. "Someone hired you." Derek's expression flickered, just for a second, just long enough. The lawyer stood. "Custody hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from today. You'll receive formal notice. Mr. Chen strongly encourages you to secure legal representation." They left, and Maya stood there in the empty diner, holding photos of her life under surveillance, feeling the world closing in. The photos were professionally taken, time-stamped, annotated. This wasn't Derek's amateur attempt at custody. This was a coordinated attack. Maya called James from the park near the lake, where Emma used to feed ducks before the asthma got bad. He answered on the first ring. "Maya, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me? I'll be there in 20 minutes. He showed up in 19, slightly out of breath, concern written across his face. Maya handed him the custody papers without preamble, then the folder of photos. She watched his face go white, watched understanding dawn like a slow-motion car crash. "Richard," he whispered. "Who?" James sat down hard on the bench, still holding the photos. "Richard Hastings, my business partner." He looked up at her. "This is my fault. I don't understand." So he told her about Richard's embezzlement, millions of dollars siphoned from Richardson Enterprises over 3 years, about the hate groups Richard had been secretly funding. About the whistleblower who'd agreed to meet James alone, in secret, in an alley behind a diner. About Richard's hired thugs who'd attacked James to silence the investigation. "You saved my life that night," James said quietly. "But you also exposed Richard's corruption. I've been building a case against him for weeks, and now he's fighting back. By going after me, by discrediting me. If he can prove I'm involved with an unfit mother, if he can create a scandal, it undermines the investigation." Derek didn't suddenly want custody. Richard hired him, probably paid him. Maya felt sick. This is insane. This is corporate warfare. And you're caught in the middle because you helped me. James took her hand gently. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But Derek didn't come up with this on his own. Richard knows you matter to me. And he knows the fastest way to hurt me is through people I care about. I blocked your number? I know. I deserved it. I thought you were slumming, playing poverty tourist. I know. And I don't blame you for thinking that. James's voice was steady. But I need you to understand. This isn't about charity or guilt anymore. They're coming after you because of me, because you saved my life, and I need to fix it. Maya pulled her hand away, anger returning. You don't get to fix my life. You've done enough. Maya, you could lose Emma. Because I helped you. The words exploded out. Because I made the mistake of being kind. Because I saw someone who needed help and I helped anyway, and now I'm losing everything. Yes. The honesty stopped her cold. No defensive excuses, no justifications. Just, yes. And I'm sorry, James continued. But sorry doesn't stop Richard. So let me fight for you the way you fought for me. Maya wanted to walk away. Every instinct screamed to protect herself, to keep her distance from this world of corporate warfare and billionaire games. But Emma's face flashed in her mind. Emma's laughter, Emma's small hand in hers, Emma's breathing, finally steady after years of struggle. Maya looked at James. Really looked at him. Saw the guilt in his eyes, yes, but also determination, partnership, someone offering to stand beside her instead of in front of her. Okay, she whispered, but we do this together, as equals. James exhaled. As equals. Maya wanted to walk away. Every instinct screamed to protect herself. But Emma's face flashed in her mind. And she knew. Sometimes pride is a luxury you can't afford. James's office occupied the entire 60th floor of Richardson Tower. Maya had walked past this building for 3 years, never imagining she'd stand inside it, much less sit at the massive conference table where decisions affecting thousands of lives were made daily. The leather chair alone probably cost more than her monthly rent. She felt like an imposter, like someone who'd wandered onto a stage mid-performance and forgotten all her lines. James's legal team surrounded the table. 5 attorneys in suits that screamed Ivy League and billable hours. At the head sat Margaret Chen, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. They're using classic character assassination, Margaret explained, spreading documents across the table. Financial instability, questionable judgment, associations with wealthy men. They're painting you as unfit and opportunistic simultaneously. So what do we do? Maya's voice sounded small in the vast room. We flip it. Expose Richard's involvement. Prove Derek was hired specifically to discredit James's corruption investigation. Turn their attack into evidence of corporate malfeasance. Another attorney, Thomas, young and eager, chimed in. We have financial records. Wire transfer from Richard to Derek for $75,000. Email trail discussing neutralizing the Richardson situation. Contract stipulating Derek pursue custody and create scandal. And we have the whistleblower, Margaret continued. Marcus Webb, former Richardson Enterprises accountant. He'll testify about Richard's embezzlement, the attack on James, everything. Maya's head spun. What do I do? Stay visible. Stay clean. Document everything. Don't give them ammunition. Margaret's gaze softened slightly. And trust that we know what we're doing. The door opened. A woman entered, 60s, impeccably dressed, carrying herself with the kind of confidence that comes from never having questioned her place in the world. Her eyes found Maya immediately, assessing, calculating. Mother. James stood. You didn't need to come. Of course I did. Vanessa Whitmore Richardson moved to the table, her gaze never leaving Maya. If someone's attacking my son, I want to know why. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Mrs. Richardson. Maya stood, refusing to be intimidated. I'm Maya. I know who you are. Vanessa circled the table slowly, like a shark evaluating prey. You're not what I expected. Let me guess, you expected trashy gold digger? Several attorneys shifted uncomfortably. James opened his mouth to intervene, but Vanessa smiled. Actually smiled. I expected someone intimidated. You're not. Maya met her gaze steadily. I'm terrified. I'm just good at hiding it. Something shifted in Vanessa's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a fellow survivor. My son doesn't care about just anyone, Vanessa said quietly. If Richard's targeting you, you must matter, which means you have my support. She turned to Margaret. Whatever resources you need, whatever it takes. For the first time since entering the office, Maya felt like she could breathe. These people weren't her enemy. But the battle was just beginning. Family court smelled like fear and broken promises. Maya sat at the defendant's table, defendant, like she was on trial for the crime of being poor, watching Derek's lawyer arrange documents with mechanical precision. Derek sat across the aisle, not meeting her eyes. He'd worn a suit for this, probably borrowed, probably paid for by Richard's $75,000. Emma sat in the gallery with Mrs. Chen, too young to understand, but old enough to know something was wrong. Maya had tried to smile at her daughter, tried to project confidence she didn't feel. The judge, a tired-looking woman named Judith Martinez, called the hearing to order. Derek's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we're here because Mr. Chen has serious concerns about his daughter's welfare. Ms. Richardson's financial instability, impending unemployment, and housing insecurity create an unsafe environment for a child with serious medical needs. The words landed like punches. Financial instability, unemployment, unsafe. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, Ms. Richardson has demonstrated reckless judgment. She's formed questionable associations with wealthy men, exposing Emma to unstable situations and potential exploitation. Maya's hands clenched under the table. They presented their evidence methodically. Hospital records showing Emma's repeated emergency visits. Eviction notices Maya thought were private. Documentation of the diner's closure. Photos of James at the hospital, at the diner. Proof of Maya's inappropriate relationship. When it was Maya's turn to testify, her legs felt like water. Ms. Richardson, Derek's lawyer approached with practiced sympathy. Isn't it true you've been unable to maintain stable housing? My landlord raised rent $400. That's not instability, that's exploitation. Isn't it true you're currently unemployed? The diner is closing. That's not my fault. Isn't it true your daughter has been hospitalized multiple times in the past 6 months? Because she has asthma. Because I can't afford the specialist she needs without help. The lawyer's eyes gleamed. Help from billionaire James Richardson? The man you claim to have just met? I helped him when he was attacked. He helped my daughter when she was sick. That's called human decency. Is that what you call it? Some might call it opportunism. Maya felt something break open inside her. I sold my wedding ring to save a stranger's life. If that makes me reckless, then I'm guilty. I work 16-hour days to keep a roof over my daughter's head. If that makes me unstable, then I'm guilty. I accept help when my daughter's life depends on it, even though it kills my pride. If that makes me an unfit mother, then I'm guilty. Her voice cracked. But I show up. Every single day, I show up. The courtroom was silent. Is it true you're in a relationship with James Richardson? No. He helped my daughter when I couldn't. That's all. That's all. You expect this court to believe? Objection. Margaret Chen stood, and her voice cut like a blade. Counsel is badgering the witness, and if Your Honor will allow, we have evidence that directly contradicts the narrative Mr. Chen's attorney is constructing. Judge Martinez leaned forward. I'm listening. What happened next unfolded like a controlled demolition. Margaret presented the wire transfer, $75,000 from Richard Hastings to Derek Chen, dated 2 weeks before the custody petition. Then the contract, signed by both men. Pursue full custody of Emma Chen. Create public scandal involving James Richardson and Maya Richardson. Timeline, 60 days, then the emails. Richard's words immortalized in digital ink. We need to neutralize the Richardson situation. The woman is leverage. Use her poverty against her. Make it look like incompetence, not conspiracy. Derek's lawyer tried to object. Judge Martinez shut him down with a look that could freeze fire. Then came Marcus Webb, the whistleblower. His testimony laid bare Richard's crimes: embezzlement, money laundering, donations to hate groups, corporate espionage, the attack on James, the conspiracy to silence the investigation. And Derek Chen? Margaret asked. Hired specifically to create a custody battle that would discredit James Richardson's relationship with Maya Richardson. Paid $75,000 to destroy a family. During recess, Maya found Derek in the hallway. He looked smaller than she remembered, defeated. I needed the money, he said without prompting. He said it was just paperwork, that you wouldn't fight it, that Emma would be better off with me anyway. You sold our daughter for $75,000. You don't understand what it's like to be desperate. To be desperate? Maya's laugh was sharp as broken glass. To have no options? You think I don't understand that? I've been desperate for 3 years, Derek. But I never sold my daughter. I'm sorry. You're only sorry you got caught. Stay away from us. When court reconvened, Judge Martinez's verdict was swift. Custody petition dismissed. This court finds clear evidence of conspiracy, fraud, and manipulation. Mr. Chen, you should be ashamed of yourself. But then, however, Ms. Richardson, your financial situation is concerning. I'm ordering quarterly check-ins with family services. You'll need to demonstrate stable housing and employment within 90 days. Not complete victory, just survival. As the gavel fell, Maya felt Emma's small hand slip into hers. Her daughter had somehow made it to the front row. "We won, Mama?" Maya looked down at Emma's hopeful face, then back at James sitting in the gallery. He wasn't smiling. He looked as exhausted as she felt, like he'd fought this battle alongside her instead of from a safe distance. "Yeah, baby," Maya whispered. "We won." But she knew the truth. They'd only survived the first battle. If this story's keeping you on the edge of your seat, smash that subscribe button, because what happens next will absolutely shock you. Trust me, you don't want to miss the ending. 1 week after the hearing, James met Maya at Rosie's Diner during its final week of operation. The closed sign already hung in the window. Inside, the staff was boxing up decades of memories. Chipped mugs, worn menus, the neon sign that had flickered for 30 years. Tony moved through the space like he was attending a funeral. Maya sat in their usual booth, though when had it become their booth, and watched James navigate past the moving boxes with careful steps. He sat across from her. No preamble, no small talk. "I have a proposal." Maya's stomach flipped. "James, not that kind. Business." He pulled out a folder. "I want to start a non-profit. Hire displaced workers like you and Tony and Maria. Provide health care, job placement, support services. The kind of safety net people deserve but never get." "That's generous, but..." "You'd run it, full autonomy. Final say on all decisions. Salary that matches your worth, not your desperation. Emma's health care covered as an employee benefit, not charity." Maya stared at him. "I don't know how to run a nonprofit. I don't know how to build community like you do. We learn together. Why are you really doing this?" James was quiet for a long moment. "Because that night in the alley, you saw someone who needed help. Not a billionaire, not a CEO, just a person. I want to see the world the way you do. And I can't do that alone. This isn't about guilt. It stopped being about guilt the moment you blocked my number, and I still couldn't stop thinking about you." The honesty hung between them like a held breath. Maya thought about Emma's drawing from months ago. The one about princesses who didn't need princes because they built their own castles. But Emma had added something at the bottom, something Maya hadn't noticed at first. 2 stick figures building a castle together, the walls twice as high. Maybe castles were better when people built them together. "Equal partners?" Maya asked. "Equal partners. I get final say on everything. And if I make decisions you think are wrong..." James smiled. "Then I'll tell you. And you'll tell me why I'm wrong, and we'll figure it out together." She wanted to say no. Every defensive instinct demanded it. But something had shifted in the past weeks, in the courtroom, in the hospital. In every moment, James had shown up not to save her, but to stand beside her. "Okay," Maya said. "Let's build something." 6 months later, the Richardson Maya Foundation occupied the first 3 floors of a renovated building in downtown Chicago. Maya had insisted her name go second. James had insisted it go first. They'd compromised. Tony was their first hire, director of operations, with a salary that made him cry. Then Maria from the diner, handling intake coordination. Then Jack, overseeing job placement. One by one, they brought the Rosie's crew home. The Foundation's mission was simple: provide displaced workers with health care, job training, and placement services. But the execution was Maya's, built on dignity, not charity, on partnership, not pity. They placed 247 workers in jobs within 6 months, provided healthcare coverage to 89 families, started a cooperative that negotiated better insurance rates for low-income workers. Small victories accumulated into something larger. Maya learned boardroom skills, budgets and projections, and strategic planning. She was uncomfortable at first, terrified of making mistakes. Sure, everyone could see she didn't belong. James learned to listen instead of solve. Learned that sometimes people didn't need answers. They needed to be heard. Learned that his privilege didn't make him wrong, but it did create blind spots Maya helped him see. Their working relationship evolved into something unexpected: respectful disagreement, mutual challenge, growth that happened because they pushed each other. Emma thrived. The specialist's treatment worked. The Foundation's youth program provided art therapy, and Emma's drawings covered the office walls, bright explosions of color that made visitors smile. Maya's apartment was still small, but now it was choice, not necessity. She could afford bigger. She chose to save instead, building security she'd never had. Late one night, Maya and James sat in the conference room reviewing grant applications. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. "You were right, you know," James said quietly. "That night at the diner." "About what?" "I did want to fix you. I thought money could solve everything." "And now?" James looked at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "Now I know the only thing that needed fixing was my understanding of what matters." Their hands brushed over the same document. Neither pulled away. The Chicago Tribune called first. From Waitress to CEO, Maya Richardson's journey ran as a front-page feature with photos of Maya at the Foundation, surrounded by the people they'd helped. The interview questions frustrated her. Everyone wanted the rags to riches narrative, the Cinderella story, the fairy tale transformation. Maya corrected them every time. "It's not rags to riches. It's about dignity at every stage. I wasn't less valuable when I was serving coffee. I'm not more valuable now. What changed is opportunity, not worth." Her platform became clear. You don't need $1 billion to matter. You need people who see your worth. You need systems that support survival instead of punishing poverty. You need community. Emma beamed when she saw her mother's photo in the paper. Brought it to school for show and tell. Told her classmates, "My mom helps people like she helped us." James was interviewed separately for a business magazine. The journalist asked what Maya had taught him. His answer was simple: "That wealth isn't what you have. It's what you give when you have nothing left." But not everything was celebration and growth. Richard Hastings' criminal trial began in fall. Maya was subpoenaed as a witness. Her testimony about the night in the alley crucial to prosecution. Walking into that courtroom felt like walking into the lion's den. Richard sat at the defense table, and when Maya took the stand, his hatred was palpable. He tried to destroy her family. Tried to use her poverty as a weapon. Tried to prove that people like her didn't matter. Maya's testimony was steady. "He tried to use my poverty as a weapon," she told the jury. "But poverty isn't weakness. Compassion isn't weakness. And I won't let anyone make me ashamed of who I am." Richard was convicted on 12 counts, sentenced to 15 years. Maya felt no satisfaction, just exhaustion. and relief that this chapter was finally closed. Comment below if you think Maya should forgive James completely or keep her guard up. I'm curious what you all think. And share this with someone who needs to hear this story today. 1 year after the night everything changed, Maya returned to the alley behind Rosie's diner. The building was awaiting demolition. Windows boarded, walls covered in graffiti, the neon sign dark and broken. In a month, it would be gone, replaced by condos or coffee shops or whatever came next. But for now, it was still here, still the place where her life had broken apart and begun rebuilding simultaneously. Maya stood where she'd found James bleeding against the brick wall. The February cold was back, biting through her coat, a new coat this time, one she'd bought instead of being forced to sell. Sensory memories flooded back. The fear, the impossible choice, the weight of her wedding ring in her pocket, that last valuable thing she'd sacrificed for a stranger. That night broke me, she whispered to the empty alley. But it also remade me. Do you regret it? Maya turned. James stood at the alley entrance, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain. She'd texted him to meet her here, but hadn't explained why. Helping you? She considered the question. I regret that it cost so much, but I don't regret the choice. James walked to stand beside her, looking at the spot where he'd nearly died. You lost everything that night. I lost a ring. I found my strength. Those aren't the same thing. They stood in silence. Two people who'd collided by accident and built something intentional from the wreckage. I spent so long believing I had to do everything alone, Maya said. That needing help meant failing, that accepting kindness meant I wasn't enough. What changed? You, Emma, this. She gestured at the space between them. Not romantic, not yet, just honest. I learned that accepting help isn't weakness, it's trust. And trust is the bravest thing we do. James reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small box. Maya's breath caught. I've had this for 6 months, James said, opening the box, waiting for the right moment. Inside, nestled in velvet, was her wedding ring. Maya's hands shook as she reached for it. How did you? I tracked down the pawn shop, bought it back. I thought you'd want it returned. She held the ring, and 1,000 memories flooded back. Derek's proposal, young and hopeful. The wedding, small but full of promise. The slow dissolution of everything they'd tried to build. The divorce papers. The decision to keep wearing it because it was the only valuable thing she owned. The night she'd sold it to save a stranger's life. I thought it was important to you, James said quietly. It was. Maya turned the ring over in her palm, watching the small diamond catch the dim light. But that's not who I am anymore. That ring represented a promise someone broke. A life I tried to force into existence. A person I thought I had to be. She walked to the spot where she'd found James bleeding, knelt down, placed the ring on the concrete. This is where the old Maya died, where the real one started fighting. She stood, brushed off her hands, and walked toward the alley entrance without looking back. James followed, understanding in his silence. As they reached the street, he asked quietly, "What if I wanted to make you a different kind of promise?" They stood on the sidewalk outside the demolished diner, Chicago traffic flowing around them, the world continuing its indifferent spin. "I don't want to rescue you," James said. "I don't want to fix you. I just want to stand beside you." Maya felt a smile tugging at her lips, despite herself. Is this the part where the billionaire proposes? This is the part where I ask if you'd consider building something with me. Not a foundation, not a charity. Just us. The honesty in his voice made her throat tight. No games, no pretense. Just a man asking a question he wasn't sure of the answer to. Ask me again in a year. James blinked. What? Ask me when we've been equal partners for a full year. When you've proven this isn't about guilt or gratitude. When I know you see me as an equal, not a project. For a moment she thought he might argue, might try to convince her, might use his considerable resources and charisma to change her mind. Instead, he smiled. That's fair. And James? Maya stepped closer, her voice soft. I'm going to say yes, but I need you to wait. Because I need to know I'm choosing you from strength, not necessity. He took her hand, so gentle it made her throat tight. I'll wait as long as you need. And for the first time in 3 years, Maya believed that maybe, just maybe, love didn't have to mean losing yourself. Maybe it could mean finding the person you were always meant to be. 18 months after a waitress saved a stranger's life in a frozen alley, Maya Richardson stood on a stage addressing 200 people at the Richardson Maya Foundation's annual gala. She wore a dress she'd chosen herself. Elegant but not ostentatious, the kind of dress that said, I belong here without apology. Emma sat in the front row, age 9 now, healthy and radiant. Her artwork displayed throughout the venue as part of the Foundation's youth program. James sat beside Emma, watching Maya with quiet pride. 18 months ago, Maya began, her voice steady. I was a waitress who thought my worth was measured by what I could carry on my own. Tonight, I stand here as proof that we're strongest when we lift each other up. The Foundation had grown beyond their wildest projections. 247 workers placed in jobs, 89 families with health care coverage, a cooperative that was expanding to 3 more cities. But the numbers weren't what mattered. What mattered was Marcus, the single father working 3 jobs whose son needed heart surgery. The Foundation had stepped in, provided health care, found Marcus a better job with reasonable hours. His son was recovering. What mattered was Teresa, the grandmother raising 2 grandchildren after her daughter's overdose. The Foundation had helped her find housing, childcare, employment that allowed her to be present for her family. What mattered was building a world where kindness wasn't punished by poverty. After the gala, Maya and James stood on the rooftop of Richardson Tower. The city spread below them like a carpet of lights. In the distance, she could see where Rosie's diner had stood. It's been a 1.5 years, James said quietly. I know. Still want me to wait? Maya turned to face him, this man who'd learned to stand beside her instead of in front of her. Who'd learned that partnership meant listening. Who'd shown up consistently through custody battles and Foundation crises and the messy, complicated work of building something real. No, James smiled. No? Ask me your question, James. He took her hand. Maya Richardson, will you marry me? Not because I saved you, and not because you saved me, but because we saved each other. Yes, on one condition. Anything. Emma walks me down the aisle, because she's the reason I kept fighting, the reason I learned to accept help, the reason I'm standing here. When they told Emma the next morning, her daughter's first response was careful. Does this mean he's staying? If we'll have him, Maya said. Emma looked at James seriously. Can we keep calling you James instead of Dad? I only had one dad, and he left. James knelt to Emma's eye level. James is perfect. Okay, but you have to promise you won't leave. I promise, and I keep my promises. 3 months later, the foundation opened a new location, the Clara Richardson Memorial Center, named for Maya's mother. The plaque outside read, "In memory of Clara Richardson, who taught her daughter that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, and that the greatest gift we can give is to see each other's humanity." On opening day, a young woman approached Maya nervously. Her clothes were worn. Her eyes carried the exhaustion Maya recognized from her own mirror 3 years ago. "Excuse me? I need help. I don't know where else to go." Maya saw herself in this woman's eyes, saw every impossible choice, every night lying awake, calculating bills, every moment of desperate hope. "You came to the right place," Maya said gently. "Tell me your story." Because in the end, it wasn't about a billionaire saving a waitress, or a waitress saving a stranger. It was about two broken people learning that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone else help carry the weight. And that is what changes the world. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. And subscribe, because I post stories like this every week that remind us all. Compassion changes everything. Thank you so much for watching Maya and James's story. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in Maya's position? Would you have sold the ring to help a stranger? Would you have accepted James's help? Or would pride have stopped you? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and I love hearing your perspectives. Next week, I'm bringing you a story that will absolutely blow your mind. A homeless veteran who saved a CEO's daughter from a kidnapping, and what the CEO did next will restore your faith in humanity. You do not want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're here when it drops. And remember, your kindness matters. You never know whose life you might change with one act of compassion. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next story.